Welcome to the CMO Spotlight, and I'm here with Alejandro Alvarez Correa, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of American Signature Inc. Welcome, Alejandro.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So I wondered if you could just start by telling us a little bit more about American Signature, the company, and then I'll ask you a little bit more about your role there.
Sure. American Signature Inc. is a privately held company, and we believe that everyone has the right to a well-furnished life. And so we do that through three different brands. We have Value City Furniture up in the East Coast, and then we have American Signature Furniture in the Southeast. And we just recently launched our Designer Looks Furniture brand, which is both in the East Coast as well as the Southeast. And we have two new furniture stores, one in King of Prussia and the other one in Dateland in Florida. So we are a furniture company that has been in business for many, many years, since the early 1900s, and privately held. So I can't disclose how large we are, but some news outlets out there classify us within the top 15 furniture companies in the US.
And you have retail stores in addition to manufactured furniture, or is it? Well, tell me a little bit more about what's the distribution channel, I should say.
For sure. So we produce some of the furniture that we sell ourselves. We produce some of our upholstered products, which is sofas, in a North Carolina facility. It is our Designer Looks Make It You program, which is a customization program that has multiple styles, up to 70 types of fabrics that you can pick from. And some of them have multiple configurations. And so we do that in the US, and we deliver it to customers in 60 or 90 days.
Excellent. Okay. So tell me about your role as Chief Marketing Officer. What are your major responsibilities, or tell us a little bit about your team, or a little more about your role there.
Yeah, for sure. So I lead the marketing team, which includes, in our case, actually includes the e-com team, but marketing from the beginning of ideation and concepting, so the creative team, and as well as the studio team that creates all of the assets and photography and videos that we use in all of our channels, all the way to production and then distribution. And we also have an incredible media team that helps us with the buying of the media. We actually do the buying internally, so we have almost like a mini creative agency and a mini media agency and a full-on e-com team. So in a very sizable studio production operation within the marketing team.
Very cool. So I'm curious about your path to get there. I know you most recently came from Banana Republic, which is based in San Francisco area. I know you began your career at Boston Consulting Group, but I'd be curious to just hear a little bit about your journey to the role that you're in now.
So I'm actually an industrial and systems engineer. And I started my career, as you well said, in Mexico, in Monterrey, Mexico, with the Boston Consulting Group. And that's why early on, I got a very good exposure to strategic, analytical thinking, a lot of data processing. I'm not afraid to do a giant Excel spreadsheet if needed, and I'm definitely not, and I actually love working with a lot of data, which I think has been proven to be very helpful as a CMO. After working for BCG for 3 years, it is an environment called the up or out. So you either continue to grow in your organization, or you just do something else. And after business school, I didn't want to go back to consulting. I found a passion in marketing based on the classes that I took in business school. And so I was able to convince some people at Levi's to, give me a job in their strategy team as a brand strategist. And little by little made my way to marketing, right? Because obviously you can't tell someone that you can be a marketer without having any marketing experience. So at least they knew that I was capable, and then they gave me the chance to move over to marketing. So my marketing career started at Levi's, and I did all the way from the size stickers of the denim and sending jeans to editors and PR in New York, all the way to managing NASCAR, the NASCAR partnership, the Jimmy Johnson partnership, which was quite eye-opening. And then after that, Victoria's Secret recruited me to move to Columbus, Ohio. And back then, and I feel like I have to footnote this, because back then Victoria's Secret was a powerhouse with women, and they knew really very well how to market product to women. And this is in the early 2000s, and
Was it
obviously,
still part of limited brands back then, or was it
correct.
independent?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, part of limited brands. And so I felt like after Levi's, I did want to learn more about marketing to women specifically. So I moved to Columbus, Ohio, became part of that organization, and was lucky enough to work in incredible projects, doing some product launches. But most notably, we started social media for Victoria's Secret from scratch. So I wrote the first post on Facebook for Victoria's Secret and pushed go, and prayed to the gods that the comments were going to be nice and
Right.
not terrible. So after Victoria's Secret, it was time for me to go back to San Francisco. So I went to Gap Inc. and I joined the Banana Republic team. We were doing some incredible partnerships with companies like East South London and Marimekko and the Madman partnership. And then I took over global integrated marketing, so creating marketing plans for Banana Republic globally, and then working with the regions, Japan and UK and franchise, to make sure that those plans were aligned with where we wanted the brand to go, but also valuable and helpful for the specific regions. And a highlight of that experience was working with the Japan team. The Japan team was part of my team for a while, and it was just incredible to have that exposure to a different country, different ways of marketing, different language altogether. I don't speak Japanese, so I mean, a lot of trust had to be involved. And then last but not least, I moved back to Columbus, Ohio, to be part of American Signature, based on some people that used to work with me at Victoria's Secret now are here at American Signature Inc. So we got connected through that, and I've been at ASI for 4 years.
Excellent. Well, I would imagine that both your home and your closet are well appointed, given your last two stops, right? You have the clothes and you have the furniture.
At least, well, I am a very loyal person, so I continue to buy Levi's jeans and I continue to buy Banana Republic stuff, and definitely the furniture world has been very kind to me. So yes, I do buy a lot of stuff from our store.
I spent the first part of my career out of college working for one of the limited brands and one of the Abercrombie and Fitch, and then later Eddie Bauer. So I spent the first 4 years of my career in retail, and then I moved on. But those years taught me all kinds of really valuable lessons that I carry with me today.
Yeah. Well, retail is not for everyone, I will say. It is definitely a fast-paced, very ever-changing environment. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't get it right, and then you have to deal with the consequences. And so it is definitely not for the faint of heart.
Well, and so that leads me to my next question is there a piece of advice that either you wish you had gotten earlier in your career, or maybe a piece of advice you would give to somebody that's relatively new in their marketing career?
Yeah, there is a piece of advice that a lot of stuff that people have told me over the years, but one that resonated with me from the very beginning is that you kind of have to keep your eye on your long-term goal. And that was particularly helpful to me because I wanted to go to marketing eventually, but I mean, it was really hard to tell people that I could do marketing without actually doing marketing. And so, you find a way through what to do, and you get into the company that you really want to work in. And then slowly you prove to them that you're capable and smart. And then you get to, network with people, and then eventually they'll give you a chance, and then you move to marketing. And so it's never going to be a straight up path, to where you want to end up. There's always going to be like ups and downs and arounds. And sometimes you have to take a step down to take a step forward. Sometimes you have to take a pay cut to make more money later. And so I think that's been advice that I've used like throughout my life. And, it is indeed, for me at least, this has been very helpful because I go, back and forth and here and there and change of industry and change of company, but I have found it all to be very valuable in crafting my professional experience.
I love that. So I'm a firm believer that everybody has a superpower. So I'm curious what you believe maybe that you've been told your superpower is.
Well, I think it has to do with empathy, actually. Even as it pertains to, we just had a debate, for example, with my team about specific creative, and creative is subjective. And obviously, there is a range of things that could be brand right, but even within that range, there are things that you can change or things that you can do. And so the idea or the ability to understand somebody that comes from one point and the other person comes from another side, and empathizing with them as to like why they're saying that or why they're recommending that, and then literally allowing the debate to happen, and then getting people to conclusion or to action or making a decision without people feeling like, one had to give up or one had to compromise. I think that is something that I can't say that I'm an expert at it, because I'm not an expert at anything. But I would say I feel very satisfied every time we have to do that, and every time with the outcome that I am able to get.
That's great. So I'm curious where you find inspiration, either for yourself or for your team.
There's a lot of sources, but you know what they say, that inspiration hits you when you never expect it to hit you. And for some people, that's like, in the shower or whatnot. I love to jump in bodies of water. So a lake, a river, a pool. It's just for me, I'm not sure if I was some sort of a sea creature in a past life or something, but I just find it so incredibly relaxing and exciting. And at the same time that I don't know why, when I'm done with that and I come out of the water, I just feel like, almost like cleansed, like refreshed, like you've left your stuff and then now you can think about new things, and now you have like a path forward. So that's always been a place. But also if I'm running, and I find the time to do that, you get this, you start thinking, your mind starts going to so many places, and you get some ideas out of that. I also love art and travel. Travel is a personal passion. And every time when I'm traveling, there's things that I'm either sketching it or making a note about it, and somehow your mind is incredible at connecting what you see with something that you have going on at home or at work. And you're like, well, I wonder if I can adapt this to that, or I wonder if I can do this that I saw in a car manufacturer in Sweden here in the furniture. Like, you know what I mean? So those would be the main sources for me.
That's great. So I'm curious if there are some values that you either want to demonstrate to your team, or that maybe you demand of anybody that might be on your team.
The biggest one for me is reliability. I am most certainly not a micromanager. And so to me is, if we agree, and it goes both ways, right? And if I agree I'm going to do something, and I'm going to have a recommendation, a proposal, a request, like anything, if I have to produce some output for a specific date and we're supposed to have a meaningful, valuable conversation about that, it's really crucial for me that actually gets done. And so reliability for me has always been paramount, right? Like you can't move forward if you don't have reliability. And ultimately the outcome or the output it's debatable, right? I mean, you may not come to something specific or a conclusion, but at least you have to have done the homework, right? And so doing what you said you would do when you said you would do it is quite important.
I love that. That's absolutely true. So Setup exists to connect brands and agencies together. We're marketing matchmakers that connect brands and agencies. And so I'm curious, it doesn't have to be even specific to American Signature Inc., but generally, how have you worked with marketing agencies throughout your career?
It's been quite diverse. So there's moments in time when you first come to a role where there's agencies that are already there, right? Relationships that are already there, and you quickly onboard and understand the value that they add, and then assess, right? Do you feel like they are indeed providing the value that you want, or do you think, or based on your past experience, do you know that there could be other agencies or partners that could potentially add more value than what they have? That's number one. Number two is then the relationships that you get to either establish or get to know over time. So it's typical, you have a problem, you have to assess if you can solve it yourself. You have to, see if it's a priority or not. And if you cannot solve it yourself, if there's a partner that can do that, and with problem, I mean problem/opportunity, then you reach out either from your past experience, people that you may have worked with, or I'm very big on recommendations from people that I may know. So if I need specific market research done, I will go back to the people that I worked with in research all the way back to Levi's and ask them for advice. Or I'll go back to somebody that I worked with at Gap and ask them for advice and recommendations, especially because not every marketer is not going to know every agency out there. And there's so many small, great agencies that are surfacing on a daily basis that you may have worked with somebody 10 years ago, but that might be somebody new or better at this point in time. So
yeah, they do change rapidly too. So that's part of the challenge is somebody that you worked with 3 years ago, or one of your colleagues worked with 3 years ago, may not be good anymore, or maybe they were not so great then and are much better now. So I'm curious, are there certain disciplines of marketing that you feel I don't want to use the word always, because always is a lot, but are there certain disciplines of marketing that you feel usually you'd want to own in-house as part of your team? And are there certain disciplines of marketing that you really like to get the outside perspective or expertise from agencies?
It really varies. I mean, it really just depends on, my point of view is that you have to have inside what you think you have to the core, or you can add value to. If you feel like somebody else externally can add more value to that specific portion, then you should just have somebody external. But if you feel like you could add more value, and the definition of value can be very broad, right? I mean, you can have, you can be more efficient, or you can have a better result, or more impact, or faster, or it depends on what you're valuing. If you can do it better, then that might be something that you may want to hold or develop internally. But again, it really varies on what each organization values the most, and then whether you believe that based on that value you can do it better or faster. Or
so as marketers, we often work with the non-marketing functions within the organization, and so I'm curious, how do you demonstrate the value of marketing to either the CFO and the retail people and the supply chain people and other functions within the organization?
Well, first and foremost, data and objectivity speaks for itself. So I mean, if you have data is data, and it's, as long as it's statistically sound, it's somewhat irrefutable, right? And again, this is the engineer in me speaking, but
right.
If you can measure the results, and if you have a specific, you don't need a lot. You need one slide that says, this is what we did, this is what we got. I mean, a CFO will absolutely react to something like that. And across the board, even merchandising, store operations. So if you have data, and it brings objectivity conversations and not subjectivity. So that is number one. Number two, back to the empathy, you have to understand and put yourself in their shoes. What is it that they value? What is it they're going to look and evaluate what you're presenting to them, or based on what they want and what they see. So if I'm speaking to, I don't know, the store operations team, they obviously hold the interactions with the customer and the associate as paramount, right? The associate well-being at the stores, the customer service. And so what you're presenting needs to be helping them foster that and move that forward in improving those things that they hold valuable. So when you're communicating with them, you have to put yourselves in their shoes, be empathetic to what it is that they're trying to achieve, and then how are you going to try through what you're presenting to help them in that endeavor.
I'm curious if there's a campaign or program, either at American Signature Inc. or in one of your past lives, that taught you a really valuable lesson, either because it was a miserable failure and you want to learn from that and maybe not do that again, or it was a huge success and you'd like to duplicate it.
A campaign or a program. There was a corporate program at Gap Inc. actually called MindSpark. And it was a program that brought multiple people from multiple functions from multiple brands together to solve a problem in a week. And so they literally allowed you to get out of your daily job and just be taken out into a really inspiring space, whether it was a warehouse or an agency or And so suddenly you immediately met people from, Old Navy production or Gap marketing, and then they posed a question that could be any sort of problem or any sort of question, and they divided you into teams, and then with your team, through that whole week, they created a program that allowed people to be more innovative and to come up with ideas to solve problems. And so it was a very practical application to design thinking and ideation with very different people. And that was incredible because not only were they basically outsourcing or finding out a way or finding ideas for problems that they wanted to solve, but also they were slowly, as people went through this program, they were slowly changing the mindset of the associates into a growth mindset of innovation and of pushing the limit. And unfortunately, if you saw the Gap Inc. results lately, you would not think that program was there. And it's because I think it actually stopped. And I think that was a big mistake. I think that program used to be a source of incredible ideas that used to be pushing the envelope forward. And yeah, it's I'm a little sad that actually went away. And I have not yet found, I've used the tools that I learned from that program in my current role for sure, but I've not yet found or have not been in a company that has something to that extent.
Yeah, well, it sounds like they're facilitating kind of hackathons for innovation, and that's great that you're able to bring that to, your current role, because it keeps you fresh, and coming up with new ideas that drive.
Yeah, I mean, the tools apply to any industry, any company. The steps, the thinking, so that was incredibly helpful, honestly, for anybody's career. But I think that was a great program.
Great. I'm going to wrap things up with some fun questions that have nothing to do with marketing. So the first is there a book or a movie or a quote or a band that inspires you, and what is it about that thing that inspires you most?
Well, I don't. I mean, there's just some really good books and there's really good bands, but inspiring for me, inspiring goes beyond, like, it kind of like lifts you up, and I have to say, there a Coldplay concert will do that to me. I just love, if you've not Googled this, you should go on YouTube and Google it. They have this ability of bringing joy and happiness and to a mass of people, like thousands of people that are in a stadium, and everybody's just expressing this, incredible energy, and it just lifts, like it lifts you up. Like it's really quite impressive, honestly, what they're able to do. And I I love concerts, but particularly their concerts tend to be the most fun and the most uplifting, honestly.
So I'm curious, where you, outside of your family, which is a too easy an answer, and outside of music, which you've already said, where do you find joy outside of work?
There's a lot of things. I find joy in travel. It's huge for me. I try to see 2 new countries every year.
Wow.
Yeah, this year was Sweden and Norway, and it's just inspiring how advanced of a society, how much they enjoy life, how much they enjoy summer, how respectful they are of the environment, how of a society that takes care of each other, and how, without getting into politics, but they really do want the neighbor to be better because it makes them better. And so seeing all those nuances across the world, because every country obviously has its own, good things, is quite inspiring.
So this is a silly question, but is there a fictional story or a realm in which you would like to live if you had a chance to live?
I mean, I don't know that it's I don't know how much of a valid answer this is, but I've always wanted to live in the future. So, and I don't know what the future is, but I've always feel like I'm stuck in the past, that like I want to live in the future when like things are flying, and I would love to live all like in the future.
Well, it leads me to say, like, how far in the future? You have to like,
Oh, this
is it
is
10
always
years? Or are you talking about like next week?
no, this, well, see, I don't know. This is always moving because when I was a kid, they sold us that 2020, like, we were all going to be flying
Flying
and
cars, right?
we're all going to be like, have like
Jetpacks.
jetpacks in our, exactly. And we're going to have like, floating skateboards. And nobody has come up with a floating skateboard. And we were told that it was going to be 2020. So now I don't know. What's your guess is my guess? 2300?
So my last question for you is there a brand that you've never worked on that you really admire? What is it about the brand that you admire most?
Well, I'm not going to give you the usual suspects because that's just boring. But there is, I don't know if you know the brand On Running,
Oh,
the
yeah,
shoe
yeah.
company. I think that they're really onto something, pun intended. It's a very unique, very cool design. They stand for more than just the actual shoe. They just came up with a way to harness CO2 emissions to actually create material out of emissions through bacteria,
Wow.
which is mind-blowing to
Fascinating.
me.
Yeah.
And they don't have to. I mean, they could continue to sell, plastic-made shoes, but they are driven by a higher purpose, and so they are trying to come up with new supply chain and distribution methods that allow us to be less harmful to the environment. And not to say that other companies have not done that, but I just really love how much they're pushing for that and their design and their and I see them a little bit more out there every day.
That's really cool. So Alejandro Alvarez Correa is the Chief Marketing Officer for American Signature Inc. Thank you so much, Alejandro. This was really a fantastic conversation. I
Oh,
appreciate
Joe,
your time.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.